Welcome to the Average Joe Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode number 8. I'm here speaking with Kaitlin Wonder today. Kaitlin Wonder has a master's degree in clinical social work from the University of Southern California, where she specialized in children and families. Kaitlin has 7 years of experience in educating, training, and reporting domestic violence, abuse, and sexual assault for the Army and Navy. Kaitlin is also a black belt in BJJ with 14 years of experience and has been teaching youth sports for approximately 20 years off and on. Kaitlin is currently the kids fundamental coach at Diego Bispo Academy. As a jiu-jitsu competitor, Kaitlin has achieved Master World Silver Medal and American National Gold and Silver Medal wins. And Kaitlin is a sponsored athlete by Hyperfly and Luda Soap. Thank you for joining me today, Kaitlin. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So today we're going to do a little bit of a different conversation than what we normally do on this podcast. Basically, the focus of this is a discussion on the recent sexual abuse and allegations that are popping up in jiu-jitsu academies. And as a father of 2 daughters and a person who's practiced jiu-jitsu for 7 years, almost 8, I find it a little disturbing, but also I think it's an important thing to get out message or ways of how to combat it. The primary case that came out that started this whole thing was Fight Sports, which was with Marcel Gonçalves. Do you know how to pronounce his last name?
It's Gonçalves.
Gonçalves, yeah. So he was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt under Cyborg at a Fight Sports. Apparently, in 2018, he was arrested for having sexual relations with a minor who was 17 in the state of Florida. 16 or 17 is a felony. He did admit to the acts. Unfortunately, he's fled the United States, as far as we know at this time, and has avoided prosecution, even though his attorney was going to use a defense of insanity or try to get out of it. So what are your feelings on it? And I just want to talk to you about, with your background, like ideas of grooming, manipulation, gaslighting, things that people can look out for, that parents can look out for, other coaches, even students, anybody who sees this type of activity who can hopefully prevent something like this from happening in the future.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this has been, it looks like the most, at least recently, the most front and center of these sexual abuse allegations against children. Unfortunately, this does seem to happen every couple of years in the jiu-jitsu community, where there's a black belt who has groomed usually it's a female student, from a very young age to then act out or go ahead and act on these on whatever it is that the instructor is wanting them to do. There's a very big dynamic between an instructor and a student, even in adult instructors and adult students. When you put the age difference in there as well, you've got an adult who knows that it's wrong, actively pursuing somebody whose brain just is not formed yet. And that is a big deal, because they don't. I mean, I remember myself even at 20, I was young and naive and dumb, and a 16-year-old, I believe she was 16 when it all started, when sexual abuse started. I was an idiot at 16. None of us are super mature at 16, but the perpetrators make you feel that way, and then they act on that and say, they will do whatever they can to try and make what they want happen. And that seems to be what happened here. I believe the victim in question had been his student for 6 years.
Yeah, she started when she was 10.
And these sexual assaults started at 16. And reading into how much they were doing and how often it was happening. This girl that obviously saw this instructor as a person of power and influence in her life, and somebody she obviously looked up to, and regardless of what happened or if she quote unquote consented, because some people have tried to say, well, she's old enough for consent. No, a 16-year-old is not old enough to consent to a 30-something-year-old.
Mhm.
And why there are things like Romeo and Juliet laws that existed
Right.
most to kind of have that buffer for those young relationships, not a 16-year-old and a 30-something-year-old man.
Right.
That's the big concern when it comes to that type of thing.
Mhm.
Things, and unfortunately, it's not as rare, I guess I'd like to say, as you would think, when it comes to child sexual abuse. 60% of the time, it is a close, trusted adult to the family,
Mhm.
which means you're talking about coaches, teachers, youth pastors, ministers, family, friends. It's 60% of the time these people. And so as parents, because I've got a 6-year-old son, and while he's a boy, he has a lower chance of sexual abuse happening. There's still of sexual abuse happening.
Mhm.
60% of the time, it's one of those trusted adults. And then on top of that is going to be family members. And only 10% of the time is it an actual stranger. So that whole as a millennial, we were always told stranger danger.
Mhm.
No, aren't the danger,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to child sexual abuse. It's not a stranger that is the dangerous person. It is people that we have been trained to trust.
Well, yeah, and I think that's, a stranger can't groom or manipulate.
Nope.
It's very difficult for them to do that, and I think that those are high points or things that are really important to look out for. Yeah, especially in this case, that I would say that's exactly what happened in this case. Um, such as I looked up grooming, and it said one tool common to those who sexually abuse kids is grooming, manipulative behaviors that the abuser uses to gain access to potential victim, coerce them to agree to abuse, and reduce the risk of being caught. While these tactics are used most often against young kids, teens, and vulnerable adults also at risk. Grooming can take place online or in person. It's usually employed by a family member or someone else in the victim's circle of trust, such as a coach, a teacher, a youth group leader, or others who naturally have some interaction with the victim. So that's exactly what you were saying. Can you give us are there specific things to look out for as far as grooming?
Yeah, there's actually there's a lot of things that you can kind of look out for the grooming side of things, and it's some of it can seem a little bit like innocent and not that big of a deal, whereas other things, like, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's totally grooming behavior.
Mhm.
Obviously, things like the coercion side of things is, if you tell anybody, I will go after your family. Or if you tell anybody, then it'll be your fault that I get put in jail,
Mhm.
and everybody on the team will hate you,
Mhm.
which what we're kind of seeing with fight sports coming out is that there's a lot of stories of females who were basically told, well, if you tell, then you're going to ruin the weekend, or you're going to ruin this, or you're going to your actions of standing up for being a victim is going to ruin everybody else's time.
Mhm.
And big deal as a victim to basically be told, this is your fault, and if you try and stand up for yourself, then everybody's going to hate you. It's like,
Mhm.
all right, well, this is my community and family, what am I going to do?
Right.
Some of the more like overt things that you can see happen, but then you'll also see things like oh, you're so amazing, I want to give you extra private lessons, can you come in a little bit early? Oh, it's okay if there's nobody else at the gym, I can just teach you, it's not a big deal, there's windows in the front, nothing will happen, don't
Mhm.
worry. um oh, don't worry, I'm going to give you a little bit, some like free private lessons,
Mhm.
right? As a black belt who gives private lessons, mine are mostly teenagers right now because I'm roughly the size of a teenager. No, you are going to pay me for my time.
Yeah.
I all, but if I have to come in extra, I expect to be paid in money.
Mhm.
Um, there's other things like nobody being at the gym when these private lessons happen,
Mm.
inviting them, or like, oh yeah, I'll take your kid to a jiu-jitsu tournament for you, don't worry about it, and then it's only you, that student of the opposite sex, in the room. That's a concerning thing as well.
Mm.
um, and then it comes down to like pushing boundaries with touch, which you can get away with and people not really realize it. As a
Right.
female, much more noticeable when somebody touches you inappropriately while rolling.
Mm.
Like I've accidentally like grabbed like my chest and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, and kind of keep going. And then I've had people that this was not an instructor,
Mm.
and this beat up and requested not to come back, but he groped my butt to tell me, all right, let's go. And
Oh.
I choked him very hard, and then I told the instructor, who then like able to take care of the issue.
Mhm.
um, but there's a very, like, you can tell when somebody's being appropriate, not appropriate, and so you can, instructors will start to roll with the students that they're trying to groom and kind of push that what is normal,
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
normal. And so then they get kind of desensitized to some of the touch. Oh no, that just happens sometimes, that's not that big of a deal, it just happens, it was an accident, don't worry about it, you're being crazy. And that's where the gaslighting starts to come in with those grooming techniques
Right.
of, and then it's, well, I've put all this extra time into you.
Mhm.
I think you're special, and I think you're like, you're so mature for your age and nobody would understand, and da 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 da, but I understand how mature you are, and I understand you're going to be a world champion, and you're not like people your own age. And so it comes into this mix of rewriting the narrative for these children.
Right.
Because if you're, I mean, even at 18 you're kind of a child, and there have been instructors who wait till they turn 18, and then all of a sudden the sexual really,
Yeah, I read about that. Yeah, I read
and
about that. Yeah, that's bad. It,
that board, I don't care that they're now 18. For
right.
me, that is some severe discomfort.
Right.
And so you start to see these types of things and you're just like, no, you want to know what? I'm not comfortable with this.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, as an instructor, and because I work mostly with the kids, uh, there are things that I do to kind of prevent and protect myself. Things like our school has cameras,
Mhm.
because it's just safer to have cameras. It's
Right.
safer public areas of the gym. If something were to ever happen, you've got camera proof.
Mhm.
Uh, that's something that's really important. And then we also, when I do like private lessons, I try to always make sure that if I'm teaching a private lesson, there's at least one other party there. Like there's a class going on the other side of the mats, or if it's just me and a student, and the student is underage, that the parent is there, or there's another like one or two instructors there. And that's just that extra layer of protection for everybody. Because number one, you don't want to be put in that situation, but number two, you want to make sure everybody is comfortable in the situation too.
Right. That's an interesting point you brought up too about the parents. I think I've heard or read instances where coaches will not allow parents to watch the instruction, and I think that would be that would be a red light, I think, for any parent out there.
So I can see it both ways. I've had parents where they do more damage by being there
Mhm.
and come on that and speak over me as the instructor.
Mhm.
And then and those ones I'll be like, all right, please go outside, we have glass
Right.
windows.
Yeah. Right.
I'm fine with that. But no, I highly encourage the parents to like, one of the kids I do most of that does most of the private lessons with me is a 14-year-old boy who is about 6 foot tall,
Mhm.
probably they're about 130 pounds. So
Mhm.
he's from me. His dad will set up the tripod, put on the camera, and record the entire thing. So then they can go back and practice, and he can
Mhm.
review learning in class. If
Mhm.
I'm teaching, that means I need him to be able to continuously watch and practice and review.
Right.
So if I don't know, personally, if I'm if I can't record my private lesson, then that would bother me just as an athlete.
Mhm.
But the parents should definitely always be able to do something like that. They should be able to be in the building.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. Um, and the groping thing too, that's been on my mind a little bit since this stuff started, and I decided to have this conversation and stuff. How often did that happen? Has that happened to you, or what other situations have you heard of for your own team or whatever?
So the nice thing is if you are comfortable telling your instructor what is going on, good instructors take care of it very, very quickly.
Mhm.
Sometimes it depends on who it is. Sometimes they pull them aside and say, hey, you're no longer welcome back.
Mhm.
We've had a complaint, watch your hands.
Mhm.
And again, usually pretty much it, they're gone.
Mhm.
The time that I was speaking about, it was actually, so it was at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and
Okay.
they have Jiu-Jitsu, and we were going to roll, and it was no-gi, or so I think it was no-gi, and the guy was like, oh, I just want to work on escaping back mount. And I was like, I'm the wrong person to do that with, but okay. Like,
Mhm.
kind of small spider monkey, like
Right.
spider has a brown belt, and this guy was like a white belt. I was like,
Mhm.
I'm not the right person to do this with, but okay, whatever.
Right.
And when he went to go, he like ran his hand up the back of my thigh and like patted my butt to say go. And I was like, okay, so now I'm going to have to hurt you. Like
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
and because it wasn't like most of the time, if you're sitting and doing that kind of drill, you just kind of like smack it like, all right, let's go,
Mhm.
like quick, like on the like side of the thigh, and then you
Mhm.
fight. Or like,
Mhm.
nope, he went up and then he grabbed my butt, and I was like, oh, we're done.
Mhm.
And so after I took care of it myself by choking the guy, I went up to the instructor. I said, hey, he just did this and I'm uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And the instructor was not happy about it.
Mhm.
And immediately like lined up everybody and was like, hey, we're going to Shark Tank. Put the guy in the middle and did a Shark Tank on him, and then told the guy, longer welcome back, and never saw him again. Um, Unfortunately, most females in jiu-jitsu can talk about a time where somebody made them feel uncomfortable,
Mhm.
and not even an instructor, a guy on the team made them uncomfortable,
Right.
and or touched them inappropriately, and when they call them out, the first thing is, oh, you're just being crazy.
Right.
Well, nobody's going to believe you. And one thing that I think a lot of people about at gyms is that if you're at a school where there's a whole bunch of high level male belts, like browns, purples, browns, and blacks, a whole bunch of them, and there's no females,
Mhm.
and you're the only one, or you're maybe one of two,
Mhm.
there's probably not a good gym culture going on. You've got a huge gym with a ton of guys, and there's a whole bunch of high level purples, browns, blacks. Like you've got purple belts, brown belts, black belts, a whole bunch of them, and nothing past a white belt female.
Mhm.
There's something with the culture. Either it's not welcoming to females, or there's potentially somebody that is, possibly predatory.
No, that's interesting. It's an interesting way to look at it. I
Yeah.
never thought about that, but yeah, I could see that. I could see the theory behind that.
Yeah. And so if you see, there's some females that are there, like
Mhm.
even if, there's just a purple females,
Mhm.
like you haven't seen because there's not a lot of female brown belts, not a lot of female black belts. There's just not. But
Mhm.
if you've established gym for 6-7 years and you cannot keep females,
Mhm.
something going on. You
Right.
haven't anybody to stay, there's something going on. And so to be careful in that kind of situation,
Mhm.
because it's weird.
Right.
Um, and we have a lot of females at our gym, so
Right.
white, black. But we have and even if there's not a ton of females, but there's 3 or 4, 5, 6 females and like 30 guys, there's still a decent amount of females there. You're in good, you're a lot safer.
Right. Do you feel like that that academies with female instructors have more female students?
I think it can be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is a positive because when you have a female instructor or even just a female that's gotten to like purple belt,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've been there a while, you've been around the group, you've understand how uncomfortable it can be as a female because jiu-jitsu is not a comfortable sport
Mm-hmm.
to get in. Like you're openly like inviting somebody into your personal space, into an area where like for as a female, you've been told is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And fight from there.
Mm-hmm.
And so having even like a high, like a 4-stripe blue belt, brand new purple belt, advanced purple belt female who has been there and does it, they can be like, look, I understand it's uncomfortable in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Let me help. If you have any questions or something makes you uncomfortable, come ask me, come talk to me,
Mm-hmm.
let me know.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge buffer and help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it is a big help. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking that is a good point, but I was also thinking like just in general, academies with female instructors, especially the head instructor, probably have more female students. There probably is an attraction to female, participants, especially when they're starting out, that they're more comfortable. Although, I've trained in academies where, there's a strong female presence, but, it was also a lot of like, a lot of MMA fighters and a lot of practitioners. So I think it can go both ways. And I think, but it all reflects, it's leadership, and the leadership there is awesome. So I think that was part of it. Also when, the instructor is a family oriented person, and he's, a stand-up person, and he doesn't take that kind of garbage from people. So what are some, I'm thinking too with the manipulation, like what are some things that if you were if you were instructing in an academy and you saw, what would be some like red flags of an instructor or somebody that you would see that would like set you off, that would make you want to question somebody's tactics or relationship with somebody? I mean,
so like if I were an instructor and I thought that somebody was acting a little bit too forward with like a student.
Yeah.
So obviously, like I said, the offering the free private lesson type thing is, I know our gym is very family oriented, and that our instructor Diego has offered to help out with families when like the kids are wanting to go compete and they don't have send all of the parents can't go as well, but the kid, they can afford to send the kid. They'll make like number one, another parent involved. If the instructor is bringing a student, that there's more than just them in the room. So the male student, right? They're still like, well, we're going to be getting an Airbnb with another family. So there's like an entire family, the instructor and the extra. And there's that extra like layer of protection around it. So then we're making sure that, people are being safe about it. But offering to do things like, I don't know, and this is just personal for me.
Well, so I want your personal experience. What are things that you know?
And these are just like warning signs that I would be wary of. Obviously of the opposite sex, because usually it is the female perpetrator. No offense to the boys who have been, and I'm not discrediting the male victims, but it tends to be the majority of the time female students being preyed upon by male instructors, male coaches, making sure that, we're not offering rides home from a male instructor to a female student. Hey, yeah, no, I don't mind staying here at the gym until your parents can come pick you up, or making sure that the parents are aware of what's going on, not just, oh, I'll just take you home, don't worry about it. Making sure that if a kid's being let, like if we're waiting for parents, that there's another adult that's there, or another family member that's there as well, to have that extra layer saying, no, go ahead and go on, don't worry about it, and then closing all the doors and closing you in there with the kid that does not have a way to call anybody. That's a concern. Being overly physical with the students. Obviously, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to see a lot of more physicality and everything, but doing things like inappropriate hugs and kisses that are beyond what a normal like instructor relationship would be. And as adults, you can kind of tell the difference between it. Now, we've had an instructor that was like a really like huggy person. And we're like, you do have to tone that down because we don't want to worry about these things. And the instructor was like, oh my God, I never thought about it. You're 110% right. I am going to change how I'm interacting with my students. Somebody who has nothing to hide will be like, you are right. I am wrong. I am going to fix this so I make sure that everybody's comfortable. Somebody who might have ulterior motives is going to be like, oh, that's not what I'm doing. You're crazy. And go into that gaslighting and trying to change it for the victim. And as soon as they start to do that, then you realize, okay, I need to watch this person. Looking for things like, honestly, I think you should background check your instructors. Now, they could have probably never done anything in the past. However, a history of crimes are going to lead to having potentially higher chance of reoffending. So making sure that you are doing that as an instructor or as a school, doing background checks.
And that's not hard to do. I mean, you can go online and check and throw somebody's name in a database and find out if they're a registered sex offender. It's not hard to do. And
not only that, but you're not only looking for sex offender or not.
Right.
So decent background check, pull up any domestic violence, any assaults in the past, like have a violent crime that's gone on. You need to really review whether or not that person should be teaching anybody anything, because that violence is a concern, as it can morph and turn into something else. Prior child abuse or prior neglect could then turn into something else. And so making sure that they don't have anything like that on the background is really, really important, because we get people that are, they're not just abusing children, they're abusing their spouses at home.
Right.
Or they used girlfriends in the past, or significant others in the past. And they don't need to be teaching people. They don't be in a position of power over somebody that could become their victim.
Right.
Because quite often abusers are very, very good at hiding it until you are safe and stuck. And when the abuse starts. And again, it comes down to that pushing like boundaries. So I'm sorry if you can hear snoring. The dog is snoring next to me.
No, it's fine. No, my dog's back here too. He's back here licking himself and cleaning himself. Yeah. So what kind of dog you have?
I don't know. She's a rescue.
Oh, she's cute.
She's a mess of a dog. I love her.
I've got a boxer. So that's one thing too I wanted to talk about today. It's not just kids. I mean, kids obviously are my primary concern, but it can also happen to adults. Like Claudia Duvall is a great example. I remember hearing about the interview and I went and watched it, and I was just like, really I don't know what the word would be, but I was really shocked, for lack of a better way to say it. It's quite a story, and and her reaction, it's hard not to believe her based on her reaction. I mean, it seems very natural.
And the reaction of De La Hiva in
Yes.
What happened was to kick out all the females.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing too about that. Let me let the dog out. He's trying to,
Okay.
Here. Yeah. Try the dog. Go. That's the thing too, is that first, according to Claudia, first the other female students in the academy, when it all went down, backed up De La Riva and
Yeah.
said all these great things about him. And then he retorted that by ejecting all the female students from his academy. And then they all took down the posts and like basically, walked backwards on their statements.
Yeah. But I mean, it's, he's not the first instructor to have these types of things happen.
No.
And shoot myself in the foot because I live in Virginia, but look at Team Lloyd Irvin.
Oh yeah, that's a good example. It's a great example. Yeah.
And people just seem to, well, he's a great instructor and he's helped us grow business. So we're going to just look the other way at all of these horrible things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
He's had instructors get in trouble for touching minor students.
Mm-hmm.
He had his male athletes rape and leave an unconscious female athlete in a parking garage on New Year's Eve after done using her.
Right.
And he paid for their lawyer and kicked her out.
Right.
And then Lloyd Irvin himself and what he did as a young adult teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So
what was that?
He was charged with gang rape, and his for getting out of it was that he was there, but he couldn't perform. So he didn't participate. So he got out on that technicality.
Yeah.
So it's not the last time, and unfortunately, well, they're just trying to ruin people's careers. What did Claudia Doval have to gain from saying this about De La Riva? What did she have to lose?
She had to lose a lot because there's a lot of people would backlash on her, and a lot of people did.
And that is that for females, for victims of sexual abuse, have almost everything to lose by going against somebody famous or against somebody well known and saying, this is what they did to me. And I'm trying to remember the rate of people that actually make it to prison for sexual abuse or rape is like 1%.
Wow, really?
Of all, I think it's close to 1% end up getting found guilty and serving. It's horrific, and that's of only the reported cases. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. I think wasn't it only like 10% of the actual rapes are actually reported?
Yeah. And then those ones that are reported, only about 5% of them make it to court, and maybe 1% of actually do any form of jail time.
No, it's crazy.
I mean, Brenner, he was a rapist, and they're like, oh, it's going to negatively impact him. Never mind the victim or the survivor, because he was a survivor of that. Right. And so and then there's so many people that say, well, she could be making a false report. She could be. The rate of false reports is so much lower. So much. So when these events happen, and somebody admits it, you have to err on the side of working with the victim because way more to lose.
Well, that's an important point when they admit it. Like Marcel admitted it.
Yeah.
He did it as he was being handcuffed. He admitted it. He made it, a spontaneous statement before he was Mirandized and actually admitted it, from what I can understand.
And with Victor, for him to get arrested, the amount of proof that you need is insane. It is insane. We had I had a parent reach out to me regarding the wrestling coach having an inappropriate relationship with their 13-year-old daughter. And I was like, well, the only option is that we have to get the police involved. Like, the parent told me what was going on, all the information that they had. I was like, you have to go to the police. And we have to tell the jiu-jitsu school what's going on.
Mhm.
Why? Well, I'm a mandated reporter, so I'm going to tell the police if you don't.
Mhm.
And regardless, everybody's going to find out about this.
Mhm.
And it took a very short amount of time for them to get the proof together to get a warrant and to arrest the wrestling coach. And the jiu-jitsu school's like stance on it was, we're going to, as soon as they found out about it, they're like, all right, so what do we need to do? And they got in contact with the police that were in charge of it. And they said, don't do anything. Let us take care of it. Pretend like nothing's going on.
Mhm.
And that purely because they didn't want to tip off the instructor.
Mhm.
Okay. We waited, they arrested him. And then we immediately were like, we support the family
Mhm.
because we're told to do by the police department and the detectives that were working on it. But it's that simple. If they come to you, if they say it, all right, how can we support you? And what do we need to do to comply with everything else that's about to happen? Because there's a lot that's about to happen.
Right. Well, it's a really bad situation. I hope, as a father and as a person who loves jujitsu and the community that I've experienced in the last 8 years, I hope it's not as frequent as it probably is.
Yeah.
But I just urge people out there that if you have any kind of inkling that that's happening where you are, or potentially, God forbid, your own kids or whatever, please look into it. Listen to your gut and take appropriate action to make sure that the kids are protected. That's the most important thing. I mean, like in the Marcel case in particular, the girl, the victim was, she got to the point where she actually quit jujitsu. She got tired of, how she felt like she was, basically being made into the bad person over it, and getting dirty looks and getting ostracized by her team, and getting treated poorly at tournaments by people that basically brought her to a point where she quit. She quit something that was really positive in her life, and it probably was a huge part of her life, and now she's
Yep.
not doing it anymore. So,
And
that's
there,
a shame.
and as parents, there's a lot that we can do as too to help with the prevention of this, and to kind of look out and look for those types of what might be going on in the background. Number one, I don't know how old your kids are, but making sure that they have the anatomically correct names for everything.
Mhm.
Big deterrent, because if a kid can say, why are you touching my penis? Why are you touching my labia?
Mhm.
Things like that, it will deter a pedophile or somebody that is trying to inappropriately touch them.
Mhm.
Give the ability to say no to physical touch. My 6-year-old son has known from a very young age that he doesn't have to give anybody a hug,
Mhm.
which really hurt grandma and grandpa's feelings for a while, because they were, well, I'm family, I want a hug. And I was like, he is not required to give anybody hugs. It's his fault. He's not going to give a hug. Giving the ability to say no, letting them know, talking ahead of time about what are safe body parts to touch, safe touches, not safe touches, tricky adults, which, by the way, is the best way to explain to kids. You haven't heard tricky adults tell you to keep secrets, tricky adults ask kids for help instead of adults, those types of things. Those are the types of things that they need to look for, and how to help your kids learn these safe adults. They're not safe people. And give them that extra bit of protection. Look, you're loved jujitsu, and now is just fighting you about going, or has absolutely no want to do jujitsu or be around a specific instructor. Okay, you need to look, why is that? Now, did they just get in trouble at jujitsu one class and had to do 20 sprawls like a bunch of times because they want, or are they refusing to tell you because they say they're not allowed to tell you why they're in trouble?
Right. Those are good points. Yeah.
Those types, because you want to be able to believe out on everything that's going on.
Yeah. And my kids are my girls are 12 and 17. So
Oh,
and for years I tried to push them into going to jiu-jitsu and doing it, and they just no, they won't do it. Absolutely refuse. They won't do it. I even
that's okay.
offered, yeah, I even offered to try to do it, between the two of them. I'd show them stuff myself, whatever, no, they won't do it. So it's okay. I mean, that's dad's thing, I guess. So they don't have to do it. I wish, like I was listening to Gordon, not Gordon, to Ryan Ford on his podcast when he was still running a podcast, and when he first had his daughter, and he was like, "Oh, as soon as she can walk, I'm getting her into jiu-jitsu." And I was like, "That's probably the best way to do it." I mean, if you're gonna get your kids to do it when they're young. Like my daughters did dance, and that's how we got them into it. It's my sister-in-law went to a dance studio, and they were like 2 years old apiece when they got into it, so they really didn't know any better or any different. So if I had done that, I probably would have, if that was a situation, I probably would have done that. And I would have told them, when you're a blue belt or purple belt, if you don't like it anymore, you can quit.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
My start, while he is not the technician that I thought he would be after 3 years of jiu-jitsu, he loves it because it's fun for him. He's got a social aspect. Occasionally he has to compete. And as long as he's trying hard, I don't care. Yeah. He doesn't win, but as long as I can tell that he's trying hard to get the other kid on the ground, to do something, do sweeps, and I don't care. I'm just happy that he can do it, and that he's the one that asked to do it and not me, because I don't, I don't make, there's no point. He won't do it if he doesn't want to.
Yeah. I was just starting. I don't know if you've sseen it, or I'm sure you've seen it. I don't know if you read it. I just started to read Breathe by Hicks and Gracie. And he was talking about his dad and how Haley would tell him, about when you're losing. You say, yeah, of course you want to try to win, but if you don't win, if you lose, then just get up and try again.
Yep.
Didn't put any pressure on him about it. Didn't, I think he told him 1.2, he's like, if you win, I'll get you a present. If you lose, I'll get you two, and I don't think he ever got those. I think he actually said on the Jocko podcast, and he was talking about the book. Point is that his dad didn't even the way his dad was as a person, his personality, he didn't pressure him about it.
Yeah.
It's all good. So if you like, we can go into some jiu-jitsu questions about your background and so forth. And how did you get involved in martial arts, and particularly in Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
Actually, it goes back to what we were talking about. I was sexually assaulted as an 18-year-old by my best friend, who was a guy, and this was at a time where they didn't equate PTSD to victims of sexual assault, and so essentially struggling with PTSD and didn't have any support system. And finally, a high school teacher realized that something was going on with me and got me over to the counselors, and they helped me through it. And at one point they suggested you should try and do something for self-defense. And I walked into the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school because somebody was like, oh, this looks like fun, you should try it. Walked in, it looked like wrestling and judo, and my dad had done wrestling and judo, and both my brothers wrestled. And I was like, looks close enough to what I know that I'll try it. And for the long time, I only trained with the one female on the team, who was a blue, and the 14-year-old boy who was about my size, because I was too of the guys. Right. And for the longest time, I only rolled with them and kind of fell in love, and that's how I got started in jiu-jitsu.
Awesome. And you've been training for how many years now? 14 years, I think.
In November.
Well, I'm sorry, you cut out. What was that?
I said 14 years, 15 in November.
Nice. And when did you get your black belt?
I got my black belt last year in March.
Nice. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's my current primary large goal in jiu-jitsu is to get my black belt, but God knows when that'll be. Who were your jiu-jitsu inspirations as you were coming up? Who'd you try to emulate, as you were trying to develop your game?
I don't think I tried to emulate anybody originally, because so my original instructor got his black belt from De La Riva. Everybody at my gym was phenomenal at guard. I was not, being one of the smallest people at the gym, I was not great at guard against these giant guys. And so, you know what? I'm going to be the opposite of everybody. So if they're going to, if they're game is going to be awesome at being on bottom, then my goal is to get around their legs.
Right.
So I was like, if I can't be good at guard, I'm going to be good at the other side. And so I started getting really into passing and trying to top game. And so I kind of stole from my brother's wrestling and my dad's judo to kind of figure out my own way of like mixing them to help with my Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And as I got better, it was, you know, when I first started, it was Leticia Hibiero and Kira Gracie. So obviously
Nice.
wanted to be literally either one of those people and I would be happy with life. And this was, I think Gabby was probably, Garcia was maybe a brown belt at the time.
Right.
Like back then where, you know, the Wild West of women's jiu-jitsu where brown belts and black belts competed together at world championships. There was not enough of either.
Right.
So that's where I kind of came up from, and there just weren't many females. So I just kind of did my own thing and was like, well, I just want to be better. And then I got back into jiu-jitsu as a purple belt after a 3.5-year break after our pregnancy with my son and everything. I started looking at, weirdly enough, Buchecha's game.
Really?
And yeah, which I'm a small person. So for me to be
He's not. He's a giant. I saw a picture of him next to my first coach, you know, and my coach is not a short person. He's probably 6'2", you know, and he looks short compared to Buchecha. Yep. And I was like, that guy, I didn't realize how tall he really was. I was like, oh my God, that guy's huge. He's a giant.
Child next to him. Like I'm not tall at all.
You come to his waist?
I think his waist comes up to my armpit, something like that. Short compared to that man. Right. But like I found out he's got a pretty flexible game for being he's pretty flexible. And so like some things that I had already liked doing, like sneaky mount and things like that, were things that he was really good at. And so I started kind of emulating that. And then I just forgot his name. No, Bernardo Faria for under guard pass. For under guard pass. And I love some of that pressure passing. So I picked up a lot of pressure passing and being a small female. And I don't know why, but it kind of works. And so I'm just working with it. Like that's where.
Yeah, I really like his stuff too. I bought a bunch of his instructionals from BJJ Fanatics, and I worked the under overpass for a while a couple of years ago, and it works really well. I still like it. I still really like it. I still try to use that style, especially as an older person, you know, because I'm not a young guy anymore, but I like the slow grinding type of pressure game. So speaking of that, so obviously you're not a guard puller, you're probably a wrestling based takedown person. Yes. That's awesome. And not the guard pulling's bad, people. Don't start sending me hate mail about guard pulling.
It's just not what I do.
Yes. I actually probably pull guard quite a bit. What is your favorite type of training modality to get better? Do you like to drill? Do you like to flow drill? Do you like situational rolling or just straight rolling, and why?
It depends on the time of year. When I don't have tournaments coming up and things like that, it's a lot more of drilling and practicing new techniques. I'm one of those people that if I'm going to try something new at a tournament or put it into my game, I will practice the hell out of it in class for almost a year before or until I feel really, really comfortable before I add it in at tournaments. Like I have to be consistently hitting it. And now my teammates know it's coming and they're fighting me from it before I will do it at a tournament. Because whenever you try something new, like you'll surprise your teammates, right?
Right.
They'll be like, oh, I didn't know you did that. And so I'll be consistently hitting it on a lot of people. And when they start to realize that I'm going to be going for it and they start to defend, and now I have like options to practice when they defend, that's when I'm like, I do this well enough that they know it's coming and they're trying to set up their defense. So now I need to be doing it at tournaments. And that's when I'll kind of start throwing it in at tournaments too. worked well for a couple of different techniques, but I'll drill a lot, practice new techniques, and try and work it into my game during the off season. And then as tournaments come up, I focus a lot less on learning new techniques and a lot more on, this is my game, this is my game plan, this is what I want to do. And I need to make sure that I have one or two options in the back of my mind for if they do something against my plan.
Mhm.
Back onto the plan and back onto what I want to have happen.
Nice. Okay.
So that's how I kind of tend to do things. A lot more free rolling and positional sparring during like competition season, working up to it.
Nice. I wanted to touch on something you said, and it's something that I'm trying to work on right now, which is, okay, I've got this great technique. I'm hitting it on all these people, at the academy, because they haven't seen me do it before. So it's something new and they don't know this part of my game. Then they start figuring it out. They start shutting it down, and then it doesn't really work anymore. So I've been thinking about, okay, maybe I need to start looking at, as I'm drilling the first thing, I need to start drilling also a follow-up right away, so that I have that follow-up. Do you do the same thing or something similar?
So I kind of go into, like, when I'm starting to work something into something new into my game, I've usually figured out, like, okay, this is what I want to do. And here's one or two options that I'm going to do based off their reaction to me doing it. If it just happens and I land it properly, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to continue and on with my plan, the original plan. If I fail, because that's what happens more often in the beginning parts, is that I fail. And so I need to, okay, what is my contingency plan for when I fail?
Mm-hmm.
And so that contingency plan that you work along with when you fail is going to be the thing that tends to be your backup plan for when they start being good at defending it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it
so
makes
like
sense.
For example, the when I started doing the collar drag for my takedown, right?
Mhm.
I was hitting it on everybody, like consistently. Once I figured out how to do it, I was consistently hitting it on everybody at the gym. But when I failed at collar dragging, that meant that I was on the bottom. So I needed to figure out where the heck I was going to go from the bottom.
Right.
So as I was practicing and getting better at it, every time I'd fail, I'd go into deep half.
Mm-hmm.
Just what naturally I hit next type thing.
Okay.
And so collar drag, I'd fail. Oh no, I can just slide into half guard or deep half. And so now that when people defend it, that's where I immediately end up going to. Like, all right, if they defend it, then I end up in deep half. I'm comfortable, not great at guard. I like deep half guard. I can effectively work from this position. And that helps kind of project me forward and having that contingency plan so I know where I'm going next.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's funny too, because we're talking about Bernardo Ferreira earlier and how I've looked at his game. And that's one thing I'm trying to think of right now, or trying to work on, is the idea of when I get to bottom, how to actually do takedowns from the bottom.
Yep.
Where you're actually doing single legs and double legs from the bottom. So and that was a new concept to me. I'd always, for whatever reason, I always thought of single legs and doubles as standing techniques, and they had to be done, started standing, and then that sort of opened my eyes. I was like, wait a minute, you can do it from half guard. You can actually transition into a takedown. So yeah, that's good. And I do like deep half guard as well. I have trained some of it in the past. We did it for a while, actually. For a while, it was really good. And I've seen, Ryan Hall has a really good instructional from back in the day on deep half guard. It's really good. A couple of the guys in my gym actually looked at it. We were playing with it for a while. It's really good stuff.
And if you've got back problems, deep half guard is a place to go to.
Yes. It's very, I don't want to use the word soft, but it's not a high impact game.
No.
Yeah. It's a nice way to sweep people. Yes, it is. So what are your thoughts on gi versus no gi? And do you have a preference? And do you prescribe to a theory that each has its own merits, which complement the other? Or do you see them as, in some ways, as a different art?
So they are two very different games. And I like Keenan, if you've ever heard Keenan Cornelius kind of talk about no-gi, I think he kind of explains it the best. It's turning into like a black hole, right?
Mhm.
So with gi, the game is spreading out like the universe originally did. Like you can add more guards and you can add more this and add more that, and you are exploring and kind of going further and further out like the universe does. With the no-gi, it's more of like a black hole. We've gotten this place where like a lot of it's going to happen in guard, which is fine. And then it's going deep, deep, deep into leg locks. Like that is where we are stuck, and we are evolving different ways to get into leg locks and really kind of focus in on those parts of the bodies. You're not seeing as much of the big wrestling like you would see in nogi, which is what nogi used to be, is a lot of wrestlers just dominating those backgrounds, just dominating everything. And the and having that big wide open base, it's focused a lot more on the guard game and keeping the guard and the leg locks, and kind of it's not disappearing or anything like that. It's just really kind of focused in on this one really, really important aspect of nogi, because it's a faster moving game. And so I like to think of it as that, is like it is a much more like precise and it's a much faster game. And so it has kind of evolved into this really cool thing that you don't see nearly as much in guard or not guard in gi, because in gi there's just this absolute, like you can hit all these different guards. There's a lot of top game plays that advance through and everything. It's just a different type of game. I prefer gi, but that's because, and I started 14 years ago. There wasn't a lot of females. There wasn't a lot of no-gi. Like the theory was, oh, you're doing a tournament? Yeah, sign up for no-gi. It's the same thing. Just change your grips. Because it was back then, and it's not that anymore. It is a very different game. And I think 10th Planet and Danaher and all of them have really shown that it's a very different and unique game. But I think they also really complement each other. My in gi have gotten better because I've been practicing more leg locks in my no-gi.
Right.
And with no-gi, you've got the ability to kind of move around a lot faster for those leg locks. And so able to kind of practice them more without the gi in the way. You're able to attack a little bit better as well once you throw the gi back on and go for those leg locks, because you know that they're there.
Nice. What do you think about the new IBBJF rules about heel hooks for black belts, brown belts? Was it brown belt and black belt, or just black belt?
Just black belts.
It's only adults.
Yes. So I'm safe.
Yeah, no masters, or we're not allowed. We're too delicate.
I mean, honestly, I'm okay with that, because I have a kid and a normal human job that I need to go to on Mondays. After the tournament, I've had an ACL surgery. Never have another one again. So okay with look, heel hooks in the gi or in the gi isn't going to happen. Heel no gi. Oh, I don't know what I just did. Okay, sorry. Sure. Heel hooks no gi, it makes sense. ADCC allows it. Everybody else allows it. Let the black do it. They're smart enough. They are smart enough to know when on a heel hook.
Right. Yeah, I do both now. I used to primarily just train gi, and because of scheduling restrictions, but lately I've been doing more no gi, but I do both. And I'm on the fence about whether I like which one I like more. It just depends. I mean, I guess right now I'm more enamored by the no gi, because it's sort of like a new toy for me, and I haven't done very much in the past, so I'm doing more now. But I do think that all the gi work I did help. That's the theory, is that it will help your defense. Because you have.
Did we freeze? Hello.
Are you there?
Hello. Craig, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Hello.
Yep. You there?
Oh, yep. There you are.
Okay, there you go. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have the interconnection's bad today. It's been all the whole conversation's been annoying me. So I like the idea of these are things that people have said, but I do really agree with them. Is that the gi gives you better, it can teach you good defense because of the friction. You have to really know how to get out of stuff. You can't just slip out like you do a no gi when you're sweaty. But on the other hand, it's the opposite for submissions, where it might be in a sense easier to get submissions in gi because of the friction and the grips and the clothing and so forth and the control factor that you don't have in no gi. In no gi, you really have to be able to really set up the submission and have the control. So I think doing both, I think, is probably the best of, in my opinion, for me, is probably the best way to go. I know there's people out there that will disagree and say like Gordon Ryan. I don't think he hardly ever trains in a gi. He has a little bit in the past, but he really never does. And he's obviously, an exceptional athlete. So, just depends, I guess. All those guys, all the DDS guys are like that, right? So, can you share your thoughts on when students should begin to compete? And the reason I asked this is because I had an interview, actually was with the last interview with Gene Cook, and he had a really good point about that, where he said, I asked him the same thing because of a post he made, and his feelings were like, if I don't think you should, I'll tell you straight up. I mean, what are your thoughts on that as well?
Pretty much the same thing. I think giving somebody a timeline based off of like months isn't a good answer. We have we have a 14-year-old girl who did a month of jiu-jitsu and went to her first tournament, and she did well. Did she win? No, I don't think she won, but she'd never been to a tournament before. She had learned so much in such a short amount of time. She had, it took her like realizing, okay, some of this stuff I'm messing up a little bit, but she did a lot of really good things. She had guard. She tried takedowns she had never done before. She had attempted to triangle everybody and their mom the entire time she was, and it was teeny tiny little things that she needs to fix, and she'll be fine. But she and her one of our 12-year-old girls had only been doing about 6 weeks of jiu-jitsu, and it was, we know you're going to be good at this. We know you want to compete. We don't expect you to, and we need you to get used to that feeling of competing and that dump and that type of thing. And then there are other kids that have been there for like 6, 7, 8 months, and I know they're going to just lay on the ground if they get to the tournament. So it really, really just depends on the person. If you're ready, I want you to go compete, and I will tell you that much. If you're not ready, I'm also going to tell you, hey, you might want to wait just a little bit longer. Is the reason why. And reason why, like, number one, you've only been here a certain amount of time. You have some really big holes that you need to just at least know what to do in that situation before further. But like I said, the 14-year-old had been going to classes 3 times a day.
Right.
Like, she was going to be fine.
Right.
Had learned a very short amount of time and was really just catching on quickly. And then there are other people that know they just aren't ready, and we want to make sure that they don't get discouraged by that first tournament. So
what type of advice would you give your students for like for mental preparation for tournaments? What do you generally do yourself? What's your
So I actually kind of played around with cognitive therapy and sports psychology to mentally prep myself. So I have a really kind of set schedule. I show up the hour before I need to show up. I make sure my weight is good, and then I put headphones on and kind of just don't talk to anybody, and I'll take a nap if I need to. If I know that I've got more time than needed, I'll go. I'll relax. If I can eat something before I need to weigh in, I'll eat something. But then when I know it's time to start getting ready, like 30 minutes before, I change it into a playlist that I've kind of set up to help me kind of get into competition mindset and mode. And then he checked, and I go into the bullpen and I focus more on what it is that I'm wanting to do. I stretch out, I kind of do some jumping jacks just to make sure that everything's kind of loose and ready. And then listen to the music, and I don't make eye contact with anybody that could potentially be my opponent.
You don't make eye contact?
No, because they don't exist.
Okay.
I don't care. Not that I care about them, but I don't care to know them. It's competing. Like, I feel better just kind of being in my own little area or zone. Like, if there's a teammate that's in the same bullpen as me, I'll kind of hang out near them and just kind of, but I tend to just not make eye contact with them. I just kind of look through them.
You don't exist. Do you actually do any type of warm-ups? I know I haven't in the past, and I've competed. It's just like, that's the thing about competition for me. Well, I know, I take that back. I warmed up one time and I popped my knee doing it right before the match, and I went out and did the match anyway. It was like, whatever. But usually I don't warm up. It's like, it's just the environment. It's like, it's just no way to really warm up. You don't have to do with you or whatever. What is your experience with that?
I'm to the point now where, like, because I can, at black belt, there's so few females that are going to be at local tournaments that I'm only doing IBJJFs or the bigger, which means that there's no warm-up area. There's a bullpen that is concrete. So there's no rolling on that. So what I do is, like I said, I'll do some jumping jacks. I'll kind of jog in place, make sure that everything feels loose and good, just as in, like, nothing's tight or stiff, stretch needed. And then I'm just good with that. But that's because I already know what I'm going to do. I already have a plan. I don't need to practice anything because it's stuff that I've been doing for a long time and that I'm comfortable with. So I don't need to, whereas, as a white belt, I was going to tournaments, I'll be like, I can't remember how to do a takedown. I need to practice times. I'm like, no, like, how to do takedowns. This is old hat stuff at this point. I know how to do these parts of my game. I just need to make sure that nothing is tight. Right. And that's just experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's usually what I do. I just try to, like, get my joints lubed up and then just go. What type of music do you listen to?
Right now it's a bunch of, like Megan Thee Stallion right now.
Really?
Moment, like, kind of, it depends on, like, I try and have more upbeat, and this is like pre-competition. So like songs that may, like, get my heart rate moving and kind of get me built up and, like, in that positive mindset. So, like, that song Build a Bee. Have you heard it?
No, I haven't, but I'm gonna go look it up after this.
It's Build a Bee, except it's the word. And it's like, this isn't build a bee. You can't pick or choose different. And it's a lot of, like, women empowered and, like, look, if I'm too much for you, I'm not the person for you. Find somebody else. I'm not changing anybody. Like, Megan Thee Stallion has a couple of good ones. Some other ones like that, kind of like woman power and I am who I am and I'm not going to change anything for you. And because it kind of goes with, like, like I said, how I compete. I have a plan. I'm not going to change my plan just because you want to change something. I will divert as needed and then go right back to my plan. And so I kind of that, and it helps kind of keep my energy up as needed. And then I have the song Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons is the song right before I walk on the mat. Because that song gets me really, really hyped up, and I'm like, this is an amazing song. And so I'll listen to it, like, they walk us out and I'm there waiting for the other match to end, and that is the song that I'm listening to every single time. I, like, switch to it. I'm like, this is my song. And so it helps with my adrenaline rush. I even have a playlist for helping calm me down if I feel like my adrenaline or my anxiety, like performance anxiety, is getting too high. That'll help down so I can breathe through it and then get myself ready. But
Yeah, I ask because I've tried using music in the past, and
uh,
I think I improperly chose for myself, and it actually did cause me more anxiety. I was just like Metallica and things like that, and it was just like I got really anxious with it. So trying to think of different things I could listen to. Um, so what type strength and conditioning? I was looking at your Instagram and I saw you're doing deadlifts, which is like my bread and butter. I love that stuff. So, I've worked out since I was 17 in one
mhm.
capacity or another. And what type of strength and conditioning do you currently use?
Yeah, so I actually am working with a conditioning coach out of Australia who
Mhm.
decided to me hearing about so last year part of my crappy 2020 was that I spontaneously herniated my L5S1 so badly that I needed surgery.
Ouch.
Lit- yeah, literally 2 weeks after I got my black belt.
Oh.
Um, so I had a slightly rough 2020 for
Mhm.
black. That one was a big one, having pretty much not emergency, but as close to as not as emergency as possible.
Mhm.
Already seeing nerve damage, and they were already seeing me having symptoms of the nerve damage in other places.
Mhm.
And so there was, as soon as the day after they saw the MRI images, they're like, "All right, 2 days later, you're having surgery." I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, okay, no time to prepare for this." And
Yeah.
so unfortunately herniated that disc, and it's BJJ Conditioning
Mhm.
um, is my sponsor for that, and he has me doing some, but it's only with the trap bar because that makes it load a little bit more onto my legs and a lot safer for my back.
Mhm.
And with a lot of what he's been giving me has posterior chain strengthening movements in it at least twice a week. So I'm able to help like rebuild a lot of the muscle that atrophied after having back surgery and trying to recover.
Right.
Um, so that is helping keep everything kind of tight and in a good spot and has been a great support for my spine.
Mhm.
So I'm not having back pain at all anymore. Like I can pretty much sleep anyway except on my stomach at this point,
Mhm.
and in pain.
Mhm.
Um, Compared to before surgery, I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand. All I could do
Right.
was lay down.
Right.
So it's a big difference between those two types of situations that I was in. And yeah, I've been doing that, a lot of weightlifting for jiu-jitsu movements
Mhm.
that are complementary to what I'm doing. So if I'm bench pressing, a lot of times it's bench pressing on the floor.
Mhm.
So then I'm getting used to that pressing the body off of me type thing. Now I'm doing full range bench presses other days, but not as much as I'm doing these ones that are more jujitsu specific for competing.
Mhm.
Um, and then he's having me do all these extra things. Sometimes I feel weird having to do like crush the sandbag crushes, and I'm like laying on the ground in side control on a sandbag trying to like crush the sandbag in the middle of a gym with all these people doing CrossFit, and I'm like, ignore
Right.
me,
Yeah.
person doing these moves.
Right. Right.
But a lot of stuff that's good for either when I go to cut weight, he sends me more hit training or
Huh.
every minute stuff to really just help me with keeping my weight low for tournaments and things like that. He's been awesome.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think one thing that's interesting to me, or it's been like something I've been looking at, is like isometrics. It sounds like he's having to do isometrics, and I have even heard like it was Gordon Ryan. I was listening to him, and he says his game is very isometric, and he uses a lot of that type of strength training too.
Yeah.
That's where I got the idea, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Um, like.
If you look at it's BJJ Conditioning. If you
Mhm.
look at um his Instagram, he
Mhm.
puts outs and things like that I think every single day at this point, of like
Right.
little inspired workouts that you can do.
Mhm.
Because he's in Australia, they've been having tighter lockdowns than we
Right.
have.
Right.
So he tries to make sure that a lot of them are lockdown friendly with limited workout
Mhm.
equipment as well. So,
That's another question. How did you guys get through the pandemic and the lockout or lockdown?
I'm lucky enough to I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Mhm.
And so we followed what was required by our state, because that's what we do.
Mhm.
while jiu-jitsu was locked down, I had a surfboard and a paddleboard, and the best place to be 6 feet away from everybody with a kid is in the middle of the water
Yes.
because they can touch you.
Right.
Beaches were obviously off limits.
Mhm.
But we could go to like the was Owls Creek is one of them, the bays in our area, just kind of long the inlets, the Rudy Inlet, the Lynn Haven Inlet, and you would literally be in the middle of the water. There's nobody else around you. My kid can
Mhm.
go swim, that kind of stuff. And paddleboarding on your paddleboard is an extra nice little workout.
Yeah.
We did a lot of outdoor sports just to kind of have fun. Our instructor had Zoom jiu-jitsu classes and let me steal a couple of mats from the gym because the gym was shut down.
Nice.
And so then would drill together to kind of work through a whole bunch of that as well, to have fun doing that. And then once they started letting certain classes happen, we started with just the drilling classes. And then when we were allowed to roll with each other, we rolled with each other. And all of those types of things. And then we limited who we rolled with to like partners that we trusted.
Mhm.
There were a couple of times where we had COVID scares.
Yeah.
And then shortly after I got COVID, they actually had a positive COVID case at the gym. And so the gym shut down, extra cleaning precautions happened.
Mhm.
I was quarantined that had been anywhere near the person.
Mhm.
But we just kind of followed everything because
What was your experience having COVID?
mine was pretty mild. I woke up and said, this is either the flu or COVID.
Mhm.
So I had my son with me and I was like, I feel like I have the flu, but I also know that basically all the symptoms for the flu is COVID.
Mhm.
So I need to go get tested and I need to figure out what's going on. I got the rapid test done and they said, yeah, you have COVID. Go
Mhm.
home and
Mhm.
and Department of Health contacted me and they contact traced me and all that fun stuff. But I had fairly mild symptoms, at
Mhm.
least symptoms that I could tell. The first day I felt like I had the flu. The second day I lost my taste for a little bit and I had a cough for about a week.
Mhm.
All right. When I was finally released to go back to jiu-jitsu, um, I felt like I was breathing water.
Mhm.
I was having a lot of trouble breathing at jiu-jitsu and
Mhm.
I'd never with my lungs. And it was kind of one of those weird things like, oh shit, this could have been really bad.
Right.
If
Right.
this had been severe, I could have done more damage to my lungs. I was really lucky though,
Mhm.
um, that bad. The worst part was taking care of a 6-year-old on my own while
Yeah.
I had COVID, because
Right.
understand like it's harder to understand. Well, now I have to wear a mask all the time. And mom is wearing gloves to make my food. And the only time I can take my mask off is as if I'm in my room alone with the door closed.
Right.
Otherwise, like, no.
Wow. Yeah, that's challenging. Yeah. Because you're supposed to like quarantine yourself and not be around, but you still have to take care of your kid. That's rough.
And so they were like, we're going to just assume your kid is positive. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
He single symptom.
Uh-huh.
The best of it, I had it like in December.
Mhm.
So one of the things that we did was I bundled them up really well on a couple of days where it was like 30 degrees outside.
Mhm.
We went because there's not going to be anybody on the beach in 30-degree weather.
Right. Right.
We went to the ocean. There was nobody else at the beach. And I like gave him more than like he stayed 10 feet away from me at all times. I wore a mask and he took off his mask and was able to run up and down the beach in like snow boots, snow coat, like
Mhm.
layers to make sure he was warm. But I was like, all right, you need to get out. You need to get we're going to go straight home after this. And
Right.
that was my way of making sure he got a little bit of extra time.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're okay. Glad you got through that. And how's your breathing now? Is it better?
It's good. It took a couple of weeks to get back to normal.
Mhm.
And it was a really kind of weird feeling. I was like, like I was gasping and it felt like there was water in my lungs the
Mhm.
entire time. It up.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like what I was like. When was it? It was in 2019. It was October 2019. I got really sick. And
Uh-huh.
I was out of the gym and everything for about a week and a half. And I thought, I didn't know if I had the flu or whatever, but this was also at the point, if you go back and look at the timeline, it was already I live in Santa Clara County in San Jose. In California. So it's basically where San Jose is and so forth. Uh, and there were studies done later on says that COVID was here, months before we knew it was here, and thousands of people had it, and et cetera. And all the symptoms you're stating are the same things I had. I mean, I was
Yeah.
just knocked out. I was on my ass. I could not do anything. I had no energy. It was like fever and congestion and everything. So I don't know if I had the flu or if I had COVID at that point. But I was sick that whole winter on and off, the entire winter. So I assume I did, but you can't be for sure. But yeah, it sounds like the same thing you had. And I had the same experience going back to train where I just had no wind at all for like a couple of weeks. So, and then eventually went away. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We'll see how whole thing develops, this ongoing thing that doesn't seem to ever go away. It probably never will. Going back to the strength conditioning, do you do like mobility or yoga or anything else like that, stretching on a regular basis?
Not so much. I do stretch, but I am hypermobile.
Mm-hmm.
So something I don't worry too much about.
Lucky you.
I know. I'm 35 and I can still like touch my toe to my nose type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got some hypermobility and pretty much all of my joints, not like bad, but to the point where I don't do it so much just because I don't really all stretch like to make sure everything is in good shape, but I'm not doing yoga and things like that. Just forget, I like yoga. It's not bad. I don't need to do it. So for me, strength and conditioning is more of building the muscle to prevent me from going too hypermobile, because I have the opposite issue where things pop out.
Yeah, so you have a very unique situation then. Oh, that's interesting. What about diet? Do you eat a particular type of diet, or?
I try to. I'm trying to just eat. Last year was pretty much a wash for me because of the back surgery and everything with COVID, and like I said, personal stuff going on. I ate really badly and kind of was like, meh, whatever. I've cleaned up my diet a lot recently. Stopped drinking Coke again. My big problem at the moment, but I tend to eat more fresh foods, less processed things, just in general. Really like fish and because and chicken. So I'm more towards those than red meats, but that's just a preference of taste. Nothing against, I love a good steak, but I tend to eat a lot more chicken and seafood because that's just my preference. But yeah, I just tend to eat a lot healthier now than I had been, a lot less of the processed stuff.
Yeah, and that's the key, I think, is like, if you want to eat a healthier diet, is to find things that are healthier, that are things that you like and you will consistently eat. If you eat stuff you don't like, it will not be very successful, based on my own experience. I've been really successful. I used to weigh 240. I've said this 1,000 times on this podcast too, and I feel like I repeat myself and it annoys me, but I used to weigh 240. And now I weigh 173 or so. But I did it with the paleo diet basically. And I basically have stuck on that diet now for close to a decade. With some modification. I eat a little more carbs now. I eat a little more rice and some stuff like that. But that's how I did it. And I like meat. I love like red meat and stuff like chicken and all that. And I like vegetables. And so I found foods that I liked, or ways to prepare them that, made it palatable for me. So I didn't feel like I was dieting, and it worked really good. I still eat some junk food here and there, but just not that often. But that's basically how I did it, is I just had to find a way to do it that I enjoyed. Do you have any other non-martial art interests or talents that you do?
Yeah, so I surf. I'm not very good at it at the moment. Haven't really gotten out there as much as I normally or as I had last year, but I surf some. Just fun. I play the ukulele a little bit.
Nice.
I'm trying to think. Other non jiu-jitsu things that I do. I don't know. A lot of my stuff is jiu-jitsu based just because I really enjoy it, and then I coach as. But I do surf, I do paddleboard. Those are some of the fun side things that I do. Play the ukulele, run around being who like be crazy. I skateboard a little bit because my skateboard and I need to be able to follow him. But yeah, I'm a millennial stuck in like high school and college. Like all of my interests stay in the exact same area. Like, no, I'm gonna just continue. I'm a cool mom. I have tattoos and I skateboard and yay. And it's just those kinds of fun things. More of just pastimes. Obviously have a dog, but tend to just be those types of things. I read a lot.
What was the last book you read?
So I'm currently reading the new Codependency, talking about setting safe boundaries and how to prevent codependency in life. That's the big one right now. To make sure that, you know, having healthy boundaries, worrying about breaking through stigmas of like alcoholism and like all of that. So
nice. Do you is your son into superheroes?
Yes, mostly, though he's into Lego Mario right now.
Okay.
If you haven't seen Lego Mario, it's an intense experience. It's like Super Mario from like when on the Nintendo to that has been mixed with modern day technology and Legos. And so you have this Mario character. Hold on, I have Mario right here. Mario's a penguin today. This is Mario, and got a little RFID scanner on the bottom, and he turns on, and you build him levels, and he goes through the levels, and he can change like the sounds that he makes based off of the color of the Legos. So red makes the lava sounds, blue makes the water sounds.
Nice.
Like there's the little scanner at the bottom. Okay, Lego Mario. The little scanner on the bottom, he can jump on like the little bad guys, stuff like that, and kill like jump and attack the little guys and get coins. Can obviously be different versions of Mario, like he's got it underneath, but that's what he's really into right now, and so that's what we do the most. He does like some heroes, but that's the big thing.
Who's his favorite superhero? I ask because I'm like an amateur artist and I like to do all that kind of stuff, so I'll ask people the same question because sometimes they get a little gift in the mail.
Oh, so Spider-Man has been really big because we played the other week in jiu-jitsu. And like I like to incorporate things that like the little kids make. And so when we were talking about spider guard grips, we were Spider-Man, right?
Nice.
Spider-Man,
yes.
That's this. And so Spider-Man plays spider guard, and we were practicing our Spider-Man moves or poses in spider guard. And so Spider-Man plays spider guard. Who was Hulk smash and pass was another one that we were joking while teaching some of the guard passes. Captain Americana for teaching Americanas, like throwing those types of things in there, and he loved it. And then I was like, Wonder Woman plays lasso guard because lasso too.
Right.
But Spider-Man plays spider guard, and he's like, Mom, I've been practicing my Spider-Man guard. I'm like, good.
Cool. Well, that answers my question. Okay. Give me a couple of good ideas. So how can people can contact you on Instagram at Mommy Grappler? Is there any other area you want people to contact you at, or you prefer?
So Instagram at Mommy Grappler is usually the easiest one. You can also look up me by my maiden name on Facebook, which is Kaitlin Carlucci, CARLUCCI, and I've got a page that is pretty close to my Instagram page, but I do most of my stuff, my jiu-jitsu stuff, through the Instagram page.
Okay. And Luda soap. I've never heard of Luda soap before. What is that, like one of the antibacterial jiu-jitsu based soaps.
Yes, and they have a soap for each belt rank in
Mhm.
E and E, and then they're really friendly hypoallergenic type things. A couple of them are completely vegan.
Mhm.
So for people who are into the vegan soaps and who are vegan and don't want to use soaps that have any animal byproducts, they've got a couple of vegan options in there as well. And
Nice.
then they have the Brazilian coffee is
Mhm.
mine and a picture on it. And then there's a couple of other athletes that have their own soaps as well. So yeah.
Nice. Nice. Well, Kaitlin, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast and talking to me today. It was a good conversation, it was an interesting conversation, and thank you again. And we hopefully you can come back in a future episode, and we can have a second discussion at some point.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Have a great day.
You
Bye.
too.